Okay guys, so what we're gonna do is I'm gonna show you how to roll out a slab. Everything that you will need material-wise is all on this little metal cart that's over by the sinks. You're gonna need a piece of canvas and you're gonna need some slip. Those are both located in the same box on that cart. You're gonna need 2 paper towels that you run under the faucet, get them wet, and then you squeeze all the water out to them where they're just damp, okay? You're gonna need a needle tool or a butter knife, either one is fine. You're going to need 2 slats that are the same thickness, so pay attention to that, okay? So 2 slats that are the same thickness, a tin can, and a roller, okay? So to do this, now what I'm gonna show you is I'm gonna show you how to do the body of your cylinder and the base, but I don't expect you to get the body and the base done all in one class period, all right? So I just am looking for you to get at least just this part done in one class period, all right? Okay, so those of you that are going to be able to work in clay today, when you are finished, so when you're cleaning up, you'll see this shelving cart that I have over here. Second hour, does everybody see that? That's where you will store your pieces. So not only will you wrap up your cylinder in damp paper towel to make sure that it doesn't dry out, but you'll also keep your extra clay that you have, all right? Okay, so once you get approved, I will cut you some clay. And then you go and get all of your supplies ready to go. And then what I like to do is I kind of like to smack this out into a thinner rectangle, okay? So I don't want it to be like super wide. And it'll kind of widen out as I'm rolling. So I'm gonna put this on the canvas, and that's really important. If you do this right on the table, the clay will stick and then you have to scrape it all off. So I've got the canvas down, clay in the middle of that. I want to have my slats, about this far apart from each other. Then to prep my can, I'm gonna flip it upside down. And I'm gonna cover from the bottom. I'm gonna cover that with paper towel. I'm gonna flip it right side up. Well, I can leave it like that for a little while. Then my second paper towel, I'm gonna tear in half. And I'm gonna wrap up the top of it. Now I guess my paper towel here isn't wet enough, so it's not really sticking to the can. There we go, I got a little bit. Then I'm gonna wrap up the top, kind of going on the inside here. And I'm just gonna smooth that all down. So now my can is ready to go. And I'll be showing you in a minute what you're gonna be using it for. Okay, so just set that off to the side. All right, you wanna make sure that your roller is clean. So if it has chunks of clay on there, you'll go to the sink and clean it off. And then you're just gonna start rolling your clay out. The slats are there to prevent you from getting your clay too thin. Okay, if your slats, like if your clay keeps getting a little too wide, you can pick up your slab carefully, kind of have to peel it off of the canvas. You can kind of gently tap it on the table surface, and that'll kind of thin it back out. So lay back down. Get the door. Okay. Flip this again. add the slats to it. If you go off on the table a little bit, that's okay. All right. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is I wanna trim myself kind of a nice straight edge. I wanna keep this clay because I can use it to build with, all right? Here's where the can comes into play. The can, we're using it as almost like an armature, something that's going to give our cylinder its shape, and the paper towels are there so the clay doesn't stick to it and we can pull the can out. So those of you that start today, you have to pull the can out no matter what stage you're in. So you cannot leave the can in there at the end of class. Everybody get that? Okay. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of align the bottom of my can to that nice straight edge. And before I do that, back up here, I don't want my mug to have that canvas texture, so I'm going to flip my slab around so the canvas texture is now facing me and will be on the inside. And then I'm just going to roll that can down the clay. Okay, so I have a lot of extra, a lot of leftover, and that's fine. So you're going to want it to overlap a little bit. So what I want to do is at this stage, I want to also give myself a nice straight edge at the top. So I kind of wanted to wait to make sure that I had enough clay to do that, and I did. So if your paper towels kind of aren't working with you, that's okay. Just do the best that you can. Just make sure that you don't have like the raw metal of the can along your clay or it'll stick. Okay, so I've got a lot of leftover. That's okay. You want your ends or parts of your slab to overlap by about this much. So by about that much, and then I'm gonna show everybody else. So everybody look. So see how much it's kind of overlapping. So about like 1.5 inches. Okay, so then I'm gonna take my needle tool or butter knife, it doesn't really matter, and I'm gonna trim off this extra. I don't go all the way through on my first pass. There we go. Okay, gonna keep that. And I wanna keep it flat because I can use it for something else. Okay, so now I'm gonna unroll that a little bit, and then I see how much I need to score and slip. So I've given myself kind of like a guideline. And what's this called? This is the scoring part, yep. So that whole area where it's gonna overlap, I'm gonna use this needle tool, and I kind of use it in 2 different directions to roughen up that surface. And then I'm gonna do it here on this other side too, where it's gonna attach. So this is something that you wanna be really thorough in, because if you're not a good scorer, your whole thing's gonna fall apart. Okay? All right, so I've got it scored. Here's the slip. You don't have to use a ton of slip. You just need to use enough on both sides that it starts making it on the both parts where you scored. Kind of get it sticky. So I just kind of grab some with my finger. If that weirds you out, you can get a tool and put it on there. I just kind of dab it on. And then I just clean off the excess. Okay? All right. So I'm gonna re-roll it back. And I'm just kind of gently pushing one side into the other. Okay, so I don't want to push too hard right now because I still have to get the can out. So if you like really squeeze it, then you won't be able to get your can out of there. So I'm going to flip this upside down, and you kind of have to gently and kind of peel off this damp paper towel a little bit. So gently but forcefully, which I know that's kind of an oxymoron. I'm pushing the can out from the bottom side. That helps a lot if you take off the damp paper towels, if you peel it back. Okay, can's out. You can decide if you want to leave you can leave the damp paper towels in there if you want, or you can take them out. It doesn't matter. Okay, now at this stage, the clay is really wet, so it's really soft, which means that you can skew this cylinder shape really easy if you use too much force. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my hand on the inside, and then very gently I'm going to use my fingers to kind of start smoothing out this connection point. So smoothing one side of the clay into another. Now see how oval it is now, because it's still really soft. So you just need to be really careful, okay? So in doing that, I can just kind of squeeze it back into shape. And then I also have this inside flap of clay that I need to smooth out also. So I'm just using my other hand as a stabilizer. I can flip it over so that my clay doesn't, or my cylinder doesn't get too out of shape. Okay, so that's a good start there. Okay, so I want to keep it as cylinder as possible. Now this is as far as I expect you to get in one class period, okay? But because I have an extra slab here, and for time's sake, and because I just have it, I want to show you how you create the bottom of your mug. So if you have extra slab, keep it. Don't crumple it up. Just you can wrap it up in damp paper towel and put it in your bag when you're finished. So what you're going to do here is you're going to take your cylinder, you're going to set it on top of this slab, and I would kind of suggest getting it to where you can see right over the top of it. I'm going to kind of reshape my cylinder a little bit to make sure it's circular. Now once you guys get it smoothed out, before you do the base part, if you stuff this with newspaper, it'll hold its shape better, so you won't have to keep fixing it like I am, okay? Get your needle tool, hold it straight up and down.
If we stuff it with newspaper, does it have to be wet?
No, you can do it dry. You can do it either way if you really want. Like if you're kind of worried that the coarseness of the newspaper would kind of scratch up the clay, then you can dampen it a little bit. That's a good question. Okay, so the reason I'm making sure that my needle tool is straight up and down is so that I don't get a weirdly angled bottom. That kind of happened on my first example, and I wasn't too happy with it. Oop. Okay, so I just traced around the bottom, went all the way through. I can keep this clay for later. So now I'm going to flip this over and take that off, and then scoring and slipping again.
Why is it crooked?
Is it like right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's crooked because at the top, like when I cut my straight edge, I didn't cut it totally straight, and so now it's kind of lopsided a little bit.
That just makes a unique cut.
That, or I can fix that later. As it starts drying, I can kind of trim it better. Okay, so I got that port scored. I'm gonna get this port scored. Again, this will probably take you guys like 2 class periods to do, or a class period and a half. And today, you have to have about at least 20 minutes to get this done. So if any of you come up to try to get approved and we only have like 10 minutes left, you'll have to start it tomorrow. That didn't really happen too much in last class, a little bit. Okay, so being thorough with my scoring so my cup doesn't fall apart. Okay. Kind of running out of slip here, so I'm going to be less generous with this one. I just got to fill it up. Okay, there we go. Clean my finger off here. Oop. Okay. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm kind of pushing down on it and like twisting at the same time, and you're going to kind of feel it like lock into place. I'm going to run my finger around and grab up any slip that's kind of leaking out the sides here. And then I'm going to break a rule. So I'm going to attach a piece of clay without scoring and slipping it. So sometimes I can break that rule. And when I do that, that's when you make a connection coil. So I'm grabbing some clay and I'm rolling out a coil. I start in my hands first, and then I'll continue to roll it out on my canvas. And you want it like thinner than probably about like this thick, their needle tool.
Is this what we do whenever we add just like clumps of clay to like make the facial features like stick out more?
Like rolling coils. Sometimes it'll be coils, sometimes it'll just be lumps. I'll show you guys as we start doing, making those facial features. Okay, so here what I'm doing is I'm adding a connection coil. That is where it serves a couple purposes. One is to get rid of that ugly seam that's still there, and 2, it provides more clay to kind of smooth down into the piece that you have for better adhesion or better attachment. So what I do is I put that coil on there, and then with my fingers I kind of divide it in half. So I'll go half and push it into the body of the cylinder, and then that top half I'll push it up into that foot part, and then I can trim the stuff off later. This one, since I'm doing it when it's so super wet, it's a little more challenging. But here my goal is just to smooth that coil out completely to where it like disappears, like you never knew it was there. And then you should have a pretty seamless transition from your base to in your mug, okay? Looks like poop, doesn't it? So this is in clay. It's really rough at the beginning, and that's normal. As we build and work in this, it will get better. Okay, it'll start to look smoother. So once you get to this part, and like I said, I don't figure you're gonna get the base on there, and that's okay. So if you just get your cylinder and you stuff it up with newspaper, then you can cover it with damp paper towel. Okay, and then you can grab all your extra clay that you had, and I'll show you guys how to wedge later, because you can use this to build. So once you get finished, you're going to come over here and grab a bag, and a permanent marker. You're gonna put all this stuff in the bag, you're gonna write your name on a permanent marker, and then you put it on the second hour shelf over there. Okay, who's got any questions for me? Yes, ma'am.
What would you want us to do if we put a hole in our clay?
If you put a hole in your clay,
Yeah,
like on accident or
on
purpose?
accident. Like if we we're trying to attach the
Mhm.
base and our fingers went straight.
Okay,
through.
yeah, good. So let's go through that. So let's say you get like really zealous and you're like trying to really smooth out and then you're like, uh-oh, okay? So if that happens, what we do from the inside, we're just gonna try and get this. It kind of depends on what stage you do that at too. If the clay is still really soft, you can salvage that fairly easily. This is again where we're gonna break that scoring and slipping rule. Or you can take a pad of clay and I'm just kind of pinching it out to an even thickness, and I'm literally kind of like a tire patch. I'm just gonna patch that straight on there like that. And then I'm gonna smooth it out to where it like disappears, okay? And I'll do that on the outside and on the inside. That's a great question to troubleshoot if you have any issues. So then I'll stick that in there. And then smooth that out until it's completely gone. Okay? All right, any other questions from anybody? Okay.